Hey everybody, welcome to the 2019 season of The Rise. My name is Ryan Sullivan, his name is Jay DeMerit, and we are starting things off with an absolute bang. A true Canadian legend, a good Canadian kid. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Theoren Fleury.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, good, buddy. Thank you so much
You're looking very comfortable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I do 100 of these every week.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So what we do here on The Rise is we like to chronicle, everything from the beginning to the end of the career. How you got into the game, your love for the game, how it grew, your professional career, the Pinnacle, and go from there. So that's what's straight ahead. But why don't we start things out from the very beginning, the first time you got a hockey stick in your hands and your love for the game was born?
Well, my dad was a great athlete. And in 1963, my dad was drafted by the New York Rangers. And the summer before he was going to training camp, he was playing in a baseball game where he was a catcher. And there was a pop fly between home base and first base. And then there was a guy on third. So my dad ran up the line, caught the ball. The guy on third tagged. They both ran to home plate. And there was a collision at home plate, and my dad broke his leg. And needless to say, his dream of playing in the NHL was figuratively and literally shattered that day. So as a kid, because there was only 6 teams in the NHL at that time, right? So there was only 120 jobs available in the NHL. My dad played senior hockey all over Canada. And so we moved around a lot when I was a kid. But when I was 5 years old, we settled in this little town in Manitoba called Binscarth. Population, I think it was like 200 people. And so one November day, I was walking home with one of my classmates from kindergarten. And, he said to me, hey, we're having our first hockey practice today. Would you like to play? And without hesitation, I said yes. And then I quickly ran home and asked my mom if I had any equipment. So we searched around the house. I found an old pair of skates that were 2 or 3 sizes too big, a broken hockey stick, some old stinky, smelly hockey gloves, a couple of Sears catalogs I used for shin pads, and I put all this stuff in a pillow sack and I went to my first hockey practice, and the rink in Binscarth was an old barn that they converted into an arena. And so I put on all this hockey equipment, and I stepped on the ice, and I didn't fall down, I didn't struggle, and I sort of fell head over heels in hockey in love with hockey that day.
Now, Theoren, you put out a book a few years back, an amazing read. I'll just give some promotion where I can. I fell head over heels. It was a great book, beautifully worded, and but there was a tumultuous time that you had to go through in minor hockey, and I'm wondering if you can kind of go into that. And I know that you do a lot of you do a lot of discussions now. You visit a lot of schools, and you're a tremendous advocate for what to look out for on the way up. But perhaps you can go into that time of your life and go over what you went through and how you overcame it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were very poor, and so it took a lot for my parents, because I had 2 brothers too that also played, and my dad played as well. So money was tight, and so it was difficult for us to even come up with the registration money for us to be able to play. But I think my first year of playing organized hockey, I scored 100 goals. And so early on in my hockey career, I wanted to be a NHL hockey player. And so that was my focus, and that was my dream. And so as I started to climb up the ladder, for example, in Pee Wee, I think we played 63 games I scored 288 goals in 63 games. And so what happened was scouts started to come and, watch our team play. And so I ended up running into this scout who was a scout for the Winnipeg Warriors, who are now the Moose Jaw Warriors. And basically, he promised me sort of a one-way ticket to the NHL. And the year I turned 14, I was a part of the very first Bantam draft that was held in the Western Hockey League. And I got picked in the second round by the Winnipeg Warriors. And the summer after I got drafted, this scout came to my house and sat my parents around the kitchen table. And, he said, we think Theo needs better competition, and we'd love for him to come move to Winnipeg, and we'll get him a good billet. And, every day he can practice, with the Warriors after school, and get him ready for, the following year, which is when I, made my debut in the Western Hockey League. And, my parents knew right from day one what I wanted to do, and so they didn't hold me back. And so when I was 15, I moved to Winnipeg. And needless to say, that decision would change me for the rest of my life, because this scout, or this coach, over the next 2.5 years, raped me 150 times over a 2.5 year period. And what I was left with was a lot of shame, a lot of confusion, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and so it was probably the most difficult time in my life, and it wasn't too long after that I discovered alcohol, as a coping mechanism to, deal with all this emotional pain and suffering that was, left behind from not only my childhood experience, but also my experience, with the coach.
No, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know that can never be easy. So you work your way up, and I mean, you make the NHL, and it's with a team that you're very familiar with growing up in Canada. Kind of describe, I mean, coming through the ranks, coming in as a rookie, you tallied up the goals pretty good through minor hockey and through junior and whatnot, but you get to the NHL and things are different. Just describe that feeling walking into the room as a rookie.
Well, the funny thing is I put up almost 500 points in junior, okay, over four seasons. And my first year of draft eligibility, I didn't get drafted, right? And there was 12 rounds at the time. And then the next year, I made the World Junior team, had 130 points, and didn't get picked until the 8th round of that year. So basically I went in the 20th round of the draft, and so the expectations were, pretty low. But I showed up at my first training camp knowing full well that this would be my one and only opportunity to make an impression. And so I actually got into 3 exhibition games that year, and I think I turned all the non-believers into believers, during that training camp, that I could actually play. And then I went back to junior that year. I was captain of Canada's national junior team that won the gold medal in Moscow that Christmas. Then I signed my first pro contract. And then at the end of that season, I went to Salt Lake City, and we won the Turner Cup, that spring. And then the next year I came to training camp, and, obviously the Flames were a very well-established, veteran team. I think I led the exhibition in scoring, and then I got sent down to Salt Lake at the beginning of that season, and I ended up leading the International League in scoring. And then on January 1st, 1989, I got called up to the Calgary Flames, and the rest is basically history. And 6 months after that, I'm carrying the Stanley Cup around the Montreal Forum. So, it was kind of I won 3 championships in the first 18 months of my, pro hockey career. So it was pretty kind of, crazy 18 months.
One of the things we always talk about on the show is mindset. And, as a young person, how did you have this kind of killer instinct, or kind of, do you think that you played with more of an edge or maybe a chip on your shoulder? Like, what kind of mindset as a young player did you have, and how were you able to produce so young?
Well, I think I had, big time skill, or, as the hockey nerds like to call, a high hockey IQ. But, I think what set me apart from all the other little guys that, didn't make it was I competed at a very high level every shift. And I think that's really what set me apart. And I wasn't afraid. Like, I wasn't scared, or I wasn't, I wasn't afraid to play the game. I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't, and I remember, because I played in the Western League I think I was 5'3", 125 pounds my first year in the Western Hockey League. Wow. And I remember we went up to Prince Albert, and we're standing on the blue line listening to the anthem, and I look over at the other side of the ice, and Dave Manson and Ken Baumgartner were defense partners, okay? And the very first shift of that game, I got hit by Dave Manson, and I thought I broke every single bone in my body. And I said to myself, that can never happen again. And so, I quickly realized that my stick could be the great equalizer. And so I learned how to play a very sort of dirty, chippy, kind of game. And that carried on through, throughout most of my career. And I'd cut your eye out and wouldn't bother me one bit. And I had to have that mentality, playing the game. And so, I guess that's where it started. And I needed to create room on the ice in order to be successful. And how do you do that? Well, you can't be intimidated at all. And, when people get in your face, you get back in their face just as, as much. And I quickly realized that, the majority of guys that, were playing the game, weren't tough guys, that I could intimidate them, with my, with how I played the game. And so I quickly learned how to create room and space on the ice for myself so that I could, be successful.
I'll segue that because extremely successful, as you touched on just a moment ago. Your rookie season, you're lifting the greatest trophy in sports. It's an incredible postseason, some amazing highlights throughout. But just kind of describe maybe that final series with Montreal. I mean, the team, the legends that were on that roster that you got to play with. I mean, it's got to be a rookie experience unlike any other I can think of, really.
I couldn't have been mentored by a greater group of guys. Lanny McDonald, Jim Poplinski, Tim Hunter, Colin Patterson, Rick Walmsley, Jamie McCowan, Rick Natras, a lot of, amazing guys. And then we had young guys like Neuendijk and Roberts and Gilmore and myself. And so, it was an incredible team to be a part of. And that series, we were number one, Montreal was number two in pretty much every statistical category, you can think of. And to go into the Montreal Forum and accomplish something that no team has ever done, is won the Stanley Cup as a visiting team on Montreal Forum home ice, was sort of the cherry on top of the sundae. And it was an incredible experience. It was an incredible run, and I just happened to fit a role that they were looking for at the time. They wanted somebody to provide spark and chip in with the odd goal or big play, and so it was a perfect situation for me to be sort of inserted in. We were big, we were tough, we were strong, and we were a good defensive team. We had a great power play, great penalty killing, and great goaltending, and so it all just sort of came together, and in the end we accomplished what we set out to do, and that was to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, you had an amazing run with Calgary, and then an amazing final preseason with Calgary too. Throw that out there. I was at the game in Vancouver. It was awesome. But I do want to jump on. You go from Calgary and then you move around the NHL, and your time with the Rangers. On the ice, putting up numbers. Off the ice, things are a little bit different. I mean, New York, obviously, the nightlife's a little bit different than what you'll find in Calgary. Those days and in these days too, I'm sure. Kind of if you can go into how things kind of changed for you through those years of your career.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really talked about this a whole lot, but and because we weren't really aware of mental health issues at the time. Nobody was talking about them, or to even get diagnosed with anything. And what happened was I started to develop anxiety and panic disorder after I left Calgary, and so I was dealing with that while I was in Colorado and New York and Chicago at the end of my career, and a lot of people think that my addictions took me out of the game, but it was really the unmanageability of my mental health issues, that took me out of the game. For example, I was getting panic attacks, right before games, and having to manage, that and still play, at a high level. And then I sort of went the pharmaceutical route to deal with, my panic disorder, and the medication I was taking wasn't working. It was actually making it worse. And so, finally when I got to Chicago, it was at its highest peak of unmanageability. And, after the 2003 season, I just decided that I didn't want to go through this anymore. And so I just left the game and called it a career.
What you're doing now, like how are you using your message to help people? Like what like you do a lot of speaking, you share your story. Like what ways are you now in the at the end of your career now using your experience to help others? How are you practicing that right now?
Well, I'm on the road 250 days of the year. Speaking about trauma, mental health, and addiction, which I believe is the biggest epidemic we have on the planet. And so, by me sort of creating a safe space through my speaking engagements, it allows other people to come to grips with, their own trauma experience, their own mental health experience, and their own addictions. And I started this 10 years ago, and I would say I'm more busy today than I was in year one after the book came out, and I knew nothing about trauma. I knew nothing about mental health. I knew nothing, about addictions. And so in the 10 years, I've really sort of gotten education, and I've really come to grips with the healing model that it takes to go from, my experience and then getting myself healthy has helped, me be a better speaker, a better teacher, a better facilitator, better, because I do workshops now, and so it's sort of evolved into all of these things, and I speak to every sort of demographic, out there, right from elementary schools right through to Aboriginal to corporate. People are looking for inspiration. People are looking for, a way out of, whatever they're struggling with.
From a hockey standpoint, I mean, that could be your greatest triumph. I mean, what you just touched on there. But I want to say, like, on the ice, just because, like, growing up, my brother and I mean, we're such huge fans. I mean, we had the Titan Theo Fleury sticks and everything. We had posters on the wall.
Nice.
But for yourself, I mean, some incredible triumphs, whether it be through junior, I mean, World Juniors, NHL. What for you, looking back, was the pinnacle of your career?
Well, I think the fact that, I wasn't supposed to play one game in the National Hockey League, okay? And I had every, thing stacked against me. And the fact that, I played over 1,000 games, and for 15 years I got to do something that I absolutely loved to do. And they actually paid me to do that. And then having all of these incredible winning experiences along the way, I can't really pinpoint one specific thing, but I think the fact that, like I said, I got to do something that I absolutely love to do. And I worked really hard, getting to where I got to. I lived, breathed, ate, slept, drank hockey for, the first probably 35 years of my life. And from it, I got to play with the greatest players in the game. I got to hang around with them. I got to learn from them. I got to absorb, their greatness. And it's really those lessons that have served me well, in the next phase of my life. And so, yeah, I won a World Junior, a Canada Cup, Stanley Cup, Olympic gold medal, Turner Cup. I was very blessed and very fortunate to be in these winning situations, in these winning opportunities, and right from Russell, Manitoba is probably where I learned about the importance of not only being a good human being, but also, all of these winning situations that I was involved in as a young hockey player, really sort of set the stage and was sort of foreshadowing for, the rest of my hockey career. So like I said, I feel very blessed and very fortunate to, have had the career that I had. And like I said, I got to rub shoulders with, the greatest players that ever played this game.
The last thing that we do to finish every show is we go back into the mind of the person and we say, what are your rise and shine rules? We all have mantras, we all have rules we live by in our lives. What are a couple that you live by continuously in your life?
Well, my mission statement on my website is to help as many people get to where they need to go. And every day I try to help one person who's struggling, get on the right path or get on the right track of life. And so, that's what gets me out of bed every morning. That's what allows me to get my feet hitting the floor running and looking for that, that opportunity to help that one person. And every day, some way, somehow, that one person is always put in front of me. And, we have this saying, helping is healing. And the more I've put myself out there that I'm in a position to help people in any walk of life, that one person has always been there. And and by helping that one person, I've really healed myself by by having that sort of mantra and having that rise and shine moment is what it's really all about.
Thank you, man. And I got to say, I mean, you've been through a lot of experiences, some that people will never see, and for better or for worse. I mean, you grab the grain of salt out of everything, and and learn to teach from it, and that's a tremendous thing. You're an amazing individual, man, and thank you so much for coming on.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Theo.
Take care.
This program would not have been possible without the fine folks at Botanica Health. Check them out on social media. But why don't we talk about the new Perfect Protein Elevated Anti-Inflammatory by Botanica. It's an organic plant protein blended with anti-inflammatory superfoods, including turmeric and ginger, plus 20 grams of fermented plant protein packed with natural vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, healthy fats, and the fiber. We love the fiber. Absolutely. It's got to be. So check them out online. Some amazing stuff, some incredible products on the way out as well. Also, thank you so much to the fine folks at Burrard Roofing who bring us this.
Drip, drip, drip. Ladies, you don't have to sleep with that drip tonight. You know, that annoying drip in your home you just haven't gotten around to getting rid of? Burrard Roofing and Drainage can fix that annoying drip. For 40 years, Burrard Roofing and Drainage has been fixing roof leaks right down to the cause, guaranteed. Call Burrard Roofing and Drainage. Call 604-986-1812. Burrard Roofing and Drainage. We've got you covered.
There you go. Check them out online at burrardroofing.com. Free estimates, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, the fine folks at the Burrard Hotel, they bring us this. Even two guys in green spandex sometimes need to break away from regular life.
And the Burrard has everything we need.
Space for hanging out.
Bikes for exploring.
Sweet rooms for getting ready for the game.
And an amazing downtown location.
So book your Burrard breakaway now and we'll see you at the game. There you go, two guys in spandex, can't go wrong. And speaking of which, enter this promo code here at theburrard.com to get a sweet deal for your next stay. And it's a local hotel. If you're going to the game, if you're going to have a few pops, which you usually do, it's within crawling distance. An amazing spot, some tremendous amenities, and we thank them so much for their sponsorship. And, of course, the fine folks at Red Truck Beer, keeping us hydrated throughout the holidays. You guys do some absolutely fine work. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And for now, a little bit more on the Rise and Shine Foundation. Check this out. See you next week.
See ya.
So we are sitting here at the future site of a really glamorous high-end facility called the Rise and Shine Retreat. Currently, we are kind of bootstrapping it with some tents that we've set up to be glamorous campsites, aka glamping. They make perfect accommodation for kids who are joining us for Jay's captain's camps.
Well, I think for us, half of this is about the mentorship program. It's not actually about soccer. The sport is why we're all here. But the mentorship is truly about what skills can we present to these kids and really start to give them an idea of what other successful people are doing in this world. And we have fun little competitions, but we always try to walk them out in the mentor's shoes because that's truly how these kids can learn.
So we feel it's really important to make sure that they are able to identify their other skills and strengths and particularly passions. It's not just kids coming up and being coached by somebody in their particular sport. It's kids' eyes being open to the multitude of possibilities and potential for success beyond the field. The idea is to create well-rounded individuals through this program. And then the other side of it is, we have all of these athletes who have transitioned out of sport, or entrepreneurs who have moved on or changed their focus and transitioned out of whatever their career path had been. And it's cool to provide an opportunity for them to be part of it.
To see kids grow and to see kids actually participate in these kind of activities is truly, for me, the biggest benefit I get out of it all, because I could see them physically developing right in front of our eyes. You know, we've been at the highest echelons of high performance, but we've also, you know, we're normal people, we're relatable people, just like everybody else. And we have this rare ability to now create the platform to understand what that means, to support each other, to bring back community in not only in our kids, but as adults, and help each other.
I think that, you know, when you achieve success as an athlete and you are so appreciative of all the people who put so much into it, it's only natural that you'd want to sort of turn around and share what you've learned and your experiences with the next generation.
We call it the Rise and Shine Retreat. That's what we're trying to create. We want people to come here in the health and wellness space and say, when I leave here, I'm going to be shining brighter. I'm going to understand what Rise and Shine means and the mentality behind it. We want to create a multifaceted facility. We want to be able to host weddings. We want to be able to host kids camps. We want to do fundraisers. We want to host community nights where people come and play sand soccer. You know, we have the license and the space to really create our own lifestyle and bring people along with that in all of this health and wellness sphere that, you know, we feel so strongly about, and have a great crew that can help in those environments and create those atmospheres. And that's the kind of thing that we want to do here. We want to be unique. We want to set a new standard in how we should live, and ultimately create a community that really cares for each other.